So I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that over the weekend I went on two very different types of dates. And one of those dates was definitely better than the other. Hello everyone, Anthony here. Welcome back to another juicy episode of the Single Parents Podcast. This is the podcast for anybody whose life may have turned out a little less than traditional. Hope you all are doing well. I think we're in October. Yeah, we made it to spooky month officially. I think this is the first episode of October. So I hope it's going well for you all. I hope as we're heading towards the end of 2024, things have just been going smoothly. Yeah. I hope things have not been too crazy. I hope things have been a little, at least manageable for yourself, for your kids, for your house, for all the things. Because even though we're heading towards the end of 2024, if your life's anything like mine, there's still plenty to figure out and to think through and to prep for. So I just hope it's just smooth. It's just smooth. It's not too much that you're just doing your thing. You're making it work and you're just going through life the best you can, giving it all you got, while all the while making sure that you slow down to just smell the roses, enjoy the little things, do what you got to do, just to make sure your life isn't nothing but running around 100 miles per hour. A lesson I'm still learning a lot, and I'll kind of get more into that here in just a moment. But I truly do hope that you, listener, are doing well. This episode is just going to mostly be me sharing some thoughts, sharing some stories, slowing down a little bit just to talk with you all, my friends out there. But before we get into that good, a few things I would just like to ask you to do. The first thing to do, if you'd be so kind, is just to make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. You've done all the things, turned on automatic downloads, rang the bells, done all of that stuff, so that way you don't miss another episode in the future. You stay up to date. We're about halfway through this fall 2024 season. I know it's crazy, already halfway through. But we got some good fun stuff planned, and I don't want you to miss out. So make sure you're subscribed so you can stay in the loop. The second thing I would just ask you to do is maybe consider sharing the podcast with a friend, with a family member, with somebody sitting across from you at the speed dating table. Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But maybe speed dating can be awkward. You know, it can be weird coming up with 30 different things to talk about. So I'm going to help you with one of those things. And I'm going to say, hey, share the podcast with somebody. That's a good icebreaker. That's a good way to show the person across from you that, okay, this person has some good taste. Okay, I see it. And we'll help you out that way by giving you something to share. So that would be great. And then last but not least, if you would be so kind to do so, maybe consider rating the podcast 5 stars, highest rating possible on your favorite podcast hosting platform. Heck, even write a little review. That would be cool. I would love to read that. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So that would be cool for me, but it also will tell the algorithms out there that the show is legit, and it'll pass it along to more people. All right, let's talk about my dating experiences again. So as I mentioned at the jump of this episode, I went on a couple of different dates over the weekend, different kinds of dates, I guess you could say. And just for some context, I'm recording this episode on a Sunday. So last night for me was Saturday. That was one of the types of dates I went on. And then Friday, the day before that was another date. So that was kind of my weekend, right? So Friday, Saturday ended my days by going out and getting a little crazy. So first I want to talk about the type of date. I'm using air quotes very loosely when I talk about all this because you'll see in a second. But I want to talk about what I did last night. So last night being Saturday for me. Last night, I went to a speed dating event. And I'm using air quotes by saying I went, but this event that I went to last night, speed dating, it's actually like my third time, I think, going to a speed dating event. Basically, it seems like every year for the last 3 years now, I hear about these events and I kind of ho-hum and be like, I don't know if that's something I want to do. Like, I'm not sure I'm feeling that, but I don't know, something in me is just like, you know what, I think it'd be good. It could be fun. At least you're getting out, meeting new people, putting yourself out there. I mean, worst case scenario, it's just something to do, right? Something to get out and to enjoy at least a little bit. Maybe there's some food, maybe there's some drinks. You just never know. So for the last 3 years, these events have popped up, put on by different people, different groups, different organizations, whatever. And I always just end up talking myself into going. And that was the case for this year, year 3, my third time trying these events. Because I heard about it a while ago, and I was just like, I don't know. I really don't care. Speed dating for me, it's kind of tricky for me. Because I think ultimately it doesn't really work for me, or at least the whole concept in general doesn't work for me, because I think I'm too good at answering and asking questions for speed dating. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, and I'll break that down. But essentially, right, if maybe you don't know, maybe you have no idea what speed dating is, but just in case, speed dating, you get into a big room with a bunch of different singles, and then you sit at a table with a chair right in front of you, and then depending on the event, sometimes it's like 3 minutes, sometimes it's like 5 minutes. Basically, you go around and you rotate around all the chairs, musical chair style, and you spend that allotted time just talking to the person in front of you, getting to know them as much as you can in 3 to 5 minutes or whatever it is before they ring the bell, and then you go on and you talk to the next person. And I guess the idea is to chat up as many people as you can, kind of get like the surface level information that you can about them, and then maybe at the end of the night you can be like, oh, that person who told me they're an underwater basket weaver, she seemed pretty cool. I'm gonna go and maybe talk to her more, or at least get her number, and then that's kind of the whole gist of it. But for me, like I said, I think I'm sometimes too good at answering and asking questions, because I'm very good at having those type of conversations, having those very, very, very surface level conversations to where you could ask me. And I've had people share this about me, and I've tried to grow a lot in this area. I really, really have, especially when it comes to some of my more intimate relationships. But I've had people share with me the fact that, like, you know what, Anthony, like, one thing about you is that you know how to have conversations, you know how to ask a lot of really good questions. And then when we ask you questions, you're good at kind of just navigating those questions in very smooth and polished and professional type answers. And at the end, you will walk away talking to you and we'll be like, oh, yeah, no, Anthony and I were really close. I really feel like we bonded over that conversation. It was a very good conversation. Sometimes it was even a long conversation. But then we'll think back at our relationship with you, or even our conversations with you, and just be like, oh, well, like, and now that I actually think back to the conversation, like, I really don't feel like I truly know Anthony. Like, yeah, I guess the conversation was good and we had a good dialogue, but did I really get to know him? Did the answers to the questions that he gave really allow me to kind of see who he really is, like get behind some of those walls? And so basically I'm very good at asking and answering questions, almost like a defense mechanism, really, because if I can almost control / navigate the conversation in a way that makes it feel like we're cool, like, hey, great talk, love chatting with you, but doesn't cross too far into the realm of me having to really get into some of my maybe insecurities or some of the things I get nervous about sharing and talking about for the sake of image perception, whatever it is. I've really had to learn sometimes in conversations not to always be great at answering questions and sometimes really think about my answers and to be okay getting vulnerable. There's what I've been thinking of this whole time I've been yapping, getting vulnerable and I'll really allowing the questions I ask and the questions that I answer truly allow somebody to really, really, really get to know me. Again, there's context and there's situations like I don't need to be having those type of deep, intimate conversations with anybody, but like I just know when it comes to like, especially talking about like dating and stuff like that, I have to be careful if I truly do want to be with somebody and want somebody to know me, not to feel like I have to be like a pro. Like I mean, look at me. Like I podcast as a hobby, right? Like I talk as a hobby. If I have a guest, I ask questions as a hobby. So like that's just type of mode. It's really easy for me to get into, and so that's why sometimes I don't always think speed dating in particular is the best for me because it's built for somebody who is like me, who feels comfortable in just the very surface level of conversations, and I can go through 30 different women and have these talks, and I'm sure a lot of them would be like, oh my gosh, yeah, talking with Anthony was great, and he shared this and he asked me about this, and that was a really good question that he asked, and I really appreciated that. Like I can do that easy, no problem, that's cake for me. But ultimately, does that really benefit me in my dating journey? Like I don't know. Like again, it's something fun for me to do, but that's why I don't always get excited about going to events like that, because I'll just know I'll end up having a great time, of course, but like if I'm truly looking to seek a real relationship, like I just don't know. For me, for my personality, for how I am, for how I work, like I just don't know if that is the most productive thing for me. I hope all that made sense. That's just speaking for myself. So to circle back though, the event that happened last night came up, and I, for different reasons, just like, I don't know. And then the big reason I kind of just broke down, I was like, I don't know. But the theme of this season on the podcast is why not? Remember, we're in our why not era. Why not get out and try stuff and do stuff? And so finally I was like, you know what? We're in the why not era. I need to talk about something on the podcast this week. So why not just, look good, get freshened up, head down there and just say, why not, and step into it. Because who knows, maybe I'd meet somebody down there who eventually we would have some deeper, more intimate, more vulnerable conversations with, and I can break down some of those walls. I mean, you just never know. That can happen at a speed dating event. I can meet somebody like that at the grocery store. Like, you just never know. So I got all freshened up. I went down there to the venue, and I didn't stay very long. I did not stay very long. I don't know. Maybe like the place looked nice. It was at like a bar / performance theater place in town, and I know they there's a beautiful balloons. You could tell they put a lot of effort in prepping for it, but I just don't know. Maybe they just didn't market it very well, or maybe they just didn't let enough people know that it was going on, because there was a whole lot of people there. And let's just say, I was just trying this whole morning thinking of like the nicest way to say this, because I don't want to come off like I'm too good or I'm a snob or I'm better than it. It wasn't that. It was just the people who were there, the few people, very few people who were there, they just weren't in my demographic. I'll just say that. Like age-wise, maybe even social personality wise, like I just knew the very few people, very few women who were there. I was just like, I could just tell like this isn't gonna be it. This isn't gonna be it. So I kind of just chilled, had a couple conversations, and then I just left. And not even out of like, oh, this sucks, I'm leaving, like this is lame or whatever. It was just because I was just like, you know what, like I came, I tried it out, I'm assessing it, and like I just don't think that this particular event tonight is for me. And so instead of kind of lollygagging, like I'm just going to go and do some other stuff. And so that was just, I don't know, maybe you hear that and you're going to be like, Anthony, you're so lame. Like you should at least give it a try. You should at least stuck it out. But I I don't know. Like I said, I barely even wanted to go in the first place, but I did. I said, why not? And I went down there and, I did talk to some people, just casual conversations. But the event itself is just, I just like, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I'm going to go home. And then, so this is going to make 3 for 3. I told you, this is my 3rd year going to an event like this. 3 for 3 times where I said, you know what, let's go check it out. And 3 for 3 times, the event just hasn't been very great. Because maybe, I don't know, I think I just live in a smallish town, I guess you could say, and the people who do put on these events, they do a great job. I know they put a lot of work into it. I definitely appreciate it, but just the turnout sometimes is just not maybe what they would always expect, or even just the event themselves. Like maybe they have this vision in their head, but it just doesn't always get executed properly. So the first time I went to one a few years ago, it was just, I went with some buddies and we were gonna, show up like the bad boys, and we go in like gangbusters and get all these numbers and do all these things, and it was just, no, the event itself was that one I don't know, just wasn't put together in a way that really could even lead to like some good conversations and to get to know people. I don't really know what their goal with that was. And then the one I went to last year, year number 2, that was more, I guess, like a religious-ish based dating event. The people who were putting it on came from that kind of mindset, and that one, the whole event was better than this year's and then the first year's as far as like an event. Me and my boys did get to talk to some people, did even get some numbers, and even the way that event was structured, they could have done some things and taken some things out of their agenda to set people up for success more, because there was a speed dating event, but they did a whole bunch of other crap throughout the night that kind of took a long time to get through. So they had a whole bunch of other stuff that there wasn't really necessary involved in the evening. So by the time we actually got to the speed dating part, it was like the last maybe 20 minutes of like an hour and a half night. And so they had to like kind of rush through it more. Like, I know it's speed dating, so it sounds kind of weird to say rush through it, because that's kind of the point, but they like really like had us like rush through it, and they didn't really think about the organizational aspects of how people were going to move throughout the chairs properly, and it kind of created like a traffic jam, and I don't think everybody even got to talk to everybody, and so it was kind of a mess. But compared to the other 2, the one I went to last night and the first year, that one was the best, and then last night was just kind of a dud. So I'm 3 for 3 when it comes to events like that, and so I think they say in baseball, right, 3 strikes you're out. I think 3 attempts and I'm out. Maybe especially like locally in my area. Maybe if I went to like a bigger city or even like a different city, like maybe I would try it again. But I think I'm good when it comes to local speed dating events. But I'm glad at least I tried it. I'm glad I said why not, because this whole why not era season of the show that we're in doesn't necessarily even mean like, hey, like put yourself out there, because things are going to work out and things are going to go good and you're always going to walk away happy with the fact that you put yourself out there. No, it's just about putting yourself out there and seeing what happens. And sometimes you say why not and you go try something, and it doesn't always end up this magical, amazing thing that you get to post on social media about, or that you get to share with your grandkids one day. Sometimes it's just like, okay, well, I tried that and on to the next day. So that was my first type of date I went on over the weekend, was the whole speed dating thing. So now let's talk about Friday. What type of date did I go on Friday? Well, that was a date that I am going to remember for a long, long time, and I probably will talk to my grandkids about, because it was amazing. Because it was a great night. I would dare even to say like almost like a perfect night, to be honest. And that was a date I took my 2 beautiful daughters on. So in my town, maybe they aren't the best at putting on speed dating events for adults, but one thing that they do put on that is always amazing, and we always mark our calendar for as a family, is they do like a local daddy-daughter dance. So they ran out like our convention conference center, and they have all these food, and they have photo booths, and they have candy, and they have a DJ, and they have a giant like real dance floor, and they have the lights and balloons, and they just make it a time where dads can bring their daughters. I think the youngest they have to be is like 5, but then any age after that, you bring your daughters. Some people, like older dads, bring their like older teenage daughters. I think even saw like a couple of like young adult daughters with their dads there. But you just get to go and you get to dress up. They do a theme. This year's theme was masquerade. But you kind of get dressed up with the theme, and then you just have a good night. The little ladies with their old men dancing and being goofy, and sometimes they go out to dinner. So you drive through town and you see these dads looking sharp with their daughters and these dresses or whatever their outfit is, and it's just always fun. And so that happened on Friday, and so what I ended up doing was I got off work on Friday. The girls were with their mom this week, but I got off work on Friday, went, got a haircut, got really all fresh, got my clothes all fresh, cleaned out my car, went and bought them flowers, and then pulled up and picked them up and gave them their flowers, and they got to be my date for this awesome daddy-daughter dance. We've done the dance, I thought it was like 3 years, but I think it might have been more than that. But we've been doing it every year for several years, and they look forward to it because their mom helps them get all dressed up, and they got new dresses, and they did their hair, and they got necklaces and bracelets and earrings and accessories, and they just know that this is a night where their dad gets to focus 100% on them. They get to feel like princesses, and they just get to go, and they just get to have their dad's 100% attention in this fun environment. Obviously, they have my attention like all the time when they're with me, but this is just a night where they just know, like, okay, this is our special night with our dad, and they look forward to it as much as I look forward to it. So I picked them up that night. We went and we had like ice cream, frozen yogurt for a little while because I picked them up like an hour before the event actually started. And we kind of just goofed around and hung out and ate frozen yogurt until the event started. And then we went to the event and we had some food, and then we just danced and we partied the rest of the night. Like literally the event was from like 6:30 to 9. We danced basically that whole 2.5 hours. It was awesome. A couple of different things. Actually, I really came to appreciate looking back at that date night. The first big thing was just the fact that I really did get to feel like I was able to truly like date my daughters, where they're at and how they needed to be loved and cherished in 2 very particular ways that night. Because looking back at the times we've been going before, my daughters were younger. They were like 5, 6, 7, 6, whatever. They were young, and so we got to go. We would eat the cookies and we would hang out, and then they would get tired, and then they're like, okay, we're ready to go. But as they're getting older now, my older daughter Ev, she's 9. My younger daughter Maddie, she's 7, turning 8. I really realized this year that they truly are growing into their own people, their own women, if you will. And so what I needed to do that night, what I real quickly realized was like, oh, this isn't going to be just a night where I pick them up and we just eat cookies and dance and party and that's going to be it. This is going to be a night where I need to meet both of them where they're at as individuals and figure out how can I make this night special for both of them with their very unique personalities, because they both need different things from me on this night. So for my older daughter, Ev, she is somebody who she loves her dad. Not saying Maddie doesn't. Maddie loves her dad, but Ev, for me, we have like a relationship to where like I'm almost like her safe place, right? I'm like her safety net. She's told me this before, and I shared this on the podcast before. But for me, her love for me is very, very, very tied to safety and security. And so a lot of our time spent that night was spent dancing together, especially during the slow songs. Like, she told me at the end of the night, like, my favorite part of the nights was the time where the DJ played slow songs, because she got to like put her head on my chest, and I got to like put my arms on her shoulder or her waist or whatever, and we would just dance for those 3 to 4 minutes per song, slowly, and just got to hold each other. And I knew she just like felt safe, and she loved that, to the point where a couple of her best friends from her school were there, and a lot of the other kids were there. They saw their friends and they would go run around and play, but her two besties were there, and she went and said hi to them a couple of times. But to my surprise, even, she was like, yeah, like, cool, I'm glad I get to see Chloe in Brooklyn, but like, I want to dance with you, Dad. Like, I'm here to hang out with you. I'm not here to mess around with my friends. Like, we're dancing for 2.5 hours straight. And so we literally did. Like, she was by my side, by my hip for those 2.5 hours. And so like, what I just needed to do was like, I needed to like be as present as possible with her, because I knew this time that we had together was super, super, super special to her. So I had to just be as attentive as possible. I tried to not be on my phone very much. Even my bathroom breaks, I was like, look, babe, the song that he's playing right now, the DJ's playing right now, it's kind of lame, kind of a bummer. So I'm going to go use this time to go to the bathroom. So when the DJ plays a banger again, we can get back out there and we can start going crazy. So that's just kind of how I had to approach her. Now, my other daughter, though, my younger daughter, Maddie, my 7, soon to be 8-year-old, she's a little bit different, Like, so again, not saying she doesn't love her dad as much as her sister, but she is somebody who really just doesn't love to have like a lot of attention and the spotlight on her, especially in like a big room or around a big group of people. She's very conscious about like, okay, how many eyes are on me right now? And when she does have a lot of like eyes on her, or she's getting a lot of attention from especially like strangers and stuff, she gets very anxious, and it just makes her uncomfortable, and it makes her shut down in weird ways. So for us to be in the middle of a dance floor, dancing and moving and being crazy, or slow dancing or whatever, she just didn't like the idea of that, because she didn't like the idea of being in the middle of a room. Sometimes when there weren't a lot of people on the floor dancing as well, it was just me and a couple other dads sometimes, and that meant the other people who were sitting around, who were eating, who were walking around, if they looked at the dance floor, they would just see us, going crazy, being kind of dorky, and she just doesn't like that type of thing. And right when I had picked them up for the dance, their mom texted me and just asked how things were going, and I'm like, good, I just got them, we're gonna go get ice cream and then hang out. And she was like, okay, well, I just want you to know basically that Maddie had just all week when she was at her house had been like really emotional and really anxious and stuff like that. So she was just basically like reminding me like, hey, like tonight, just kind of like watch how you are, make things good for her, because she's just had a very kind of rough emotional week for a 7-year-old. And so when I first got there and the dance floor was empty, and Ev, like I said, she just wanted to dance with me the whole night. Like immediately she wanted to go to the floor. But Maddie, I was like, okay, come on, Maddie, let's go dance. And she looked around and saw that not a lot of people were dancing. And she's like, no, like, I don't want to do that right now. Like, I want to go do some other stuff. She had found a friend who was there, and so she's like, I'm gonna go say hi to my friend or whatever, because I don't want to go out there dancing like that, because that's embarrassing, and I'm here to have fun. She said that's embarrassing, I'm here to have fun. And I immediately wanted to be like, well, no, like, this is a daddy-daughter dance, like, we're supposed to be out here dancing together, the three of us, and blah blah blah. Because in my head, like, if in my own head, we're like all three cuddled together dancing throughout the night, and we're having great conversation as father and daughters and blah 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 blah. But that's in my own head with my own expectations, not truly meeting my girls where they're at. Because again, Ev, she did want and need that type of attention from me. But for Maddie, the idea of doing that just would have caused her a lot of anxiety, and it wouldn't have been fun for her. And that wouldn't, if I would have made her come out and to do that the whole night, that would have been me not meeting her where she's at, not hearing her, not seeing her, not meeting her needs. And so like I had to like in that moment kind of have a conversation with myself and be like, Anthony, like, don't take it personal. You know, this is how she is. Like, let's just let her enjoy her night the way she needs to enjoy it. And then Ev can enjoy her night the way she needs to enjoy it. So throughout the night, Maddie played with her friends. She liked to do stuff. She didn't like to get out and dance in front of people, but Maddie liked to do stuff. So like we went and did the photo booth and we took silly pictures, and then she again saw some of her friends running around, and her friend won a raffle that night, so her friend gave her some stuff out of her raffle basket, so that meant a lot to her. And so she just spent the night just doing her thing, having fun, like coming and going and doing the little activities that were around the event venue that night. And she just looked like she was just living her life. But what was really cool was that towards the end of the night, when the DJ had said, okay, we're gonna play like 2 or 3 more songs and wrap it up, I was just out there. I don't remember where Ev was. Maybe that was one of the times Ev did go say hi to one of her friends. But I was just basically out there dancing by myself, being kind of a dork by myself. And Maddie came up, grabbed my hands, and she did dance for like half of a song, like maybe most of a song, but she did grab my hands and we danced together. And then when that song ended, she like ran off again. But that half of a song, 3/4 of a song that she did dance with me meant a lot, because I think that was her way of saying like, you know what, Dad, yes, I didn't want to stand out here dancing with you the whole night like my sister, but this was still like a fun night. I still see you. I still love you. And so like, I'm going to come and do something I don't want to do for half of a song, because I still want to like show you that I love you, and I just want to at least do this one little thing with you. Like, that's just how I took it. And I appreciated that a lot more than like forcing her to come out and dance with me the whole night and her be miserable, and or me like guilt her into it even, or shame her into it and be like, what? Like, oh, this is a daddy-daughter dance. You don't want to dance with your dad like your sister? Like, that just, I don't know. I just didn't want to do that. So I think that was her 7-year-old way of saying thank you for allowing me to enjoy this night in the way that I truly needed to enjoy it. And so we wrapped up the night. We got all our stuff. We were all tired and our feet hurt, and I took them back to their mom's house. And afterwards, I was like, you know what? My dogs are barking. Like, I need to go sit down. But like, I just danced for 2.5 hours, so my mind's going. Like, I still got the going through my head. Still got the adrenaline, so I don't necessarily want to go home and go to bed. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna go to a movie. Like, it's like 9:30 at night. I'm just gonna go to a movie by myself, so that way, like, I can let my brain calm down a little bit before bed, but I can still do something that allows me to put my feet up. So I got to the theater. I was just in there by myself, so I took off my shoes, which was good. I was by myself because they probably stank. And then I put the little reclining seat up, got comfortable, and then as soon as I was really comfortable, my phone started to ring, and it was the girls. So I was like, I literally just saw you 10 minutes ago. So I got out of the theater. I went out and I said, hey guys, what's up? And they were already like in bed because they had stuff to do the next day. So their mom had them go to bed pretty quick, but they were just like, Dad, we just want to say thank you so much for taking us to the dance. Like, and I was like, oh yeah, like, of course. You guys you had a lot of fun. Like, did you enjoy it? Like, what are your thoughts? And they were like, yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was awesome, and all these different things. They're like, thank you for buying us flowers. Thank you for taking us. And like, even for Maddie, even though we didn't dance together the whole night, she was just going off about how much fun she had and how thankful that she was that I took her and all these different things. And so it was a great night for me to learn that as my daughters get older, I just myself am just gonna have to do the work to continue to get to know them, to get to understand them as much as possible, so that way I can continue to love them well where they're at as individuals. And that might take some extra effort, that might take extra work, because they're not like 4 and 5-year-olds who I can just tote around and just do whatever with, and like, they have their own personalities and their own dislikes and likes and wants and desires. And so it's just a good night for me as a dad, just to kind of understand that and learn that. And I'm glad I was able to understand that and learn that through a date. So that was pretty cool. And then the second thing I kind of walked away with appreciating actually kind of goes back to a question that Tawny, who was on last week's episode, asked me. So if you watched the episode, maybe you didn't, but like at the beginning of the episode, we're kind of just talking back and forth before we kind of get into what the episode's actually about. So I asked Tawny, like, hey, how are you doing? She talked about that. And then I didn't know she was going to ask me this because, again, going back to the whole, like, I'm good at answering / asking questions, but sometimes like I get caught off guard when I get asked questions because like I said, it's like a defense mechanism sometimes how I answer. So if I get caught off guard with a question I don't know that's coming, that can make me feel a little anxious because of like, oh, I didn't have time to prepare the perfect answer for this. So if you watched the episode of the podcast last week, when she asked me, you can kind of see like, I'd be like, I didn't know you were going to ask me that. But Tawny asked me like, hey, like, how are you doing? And then I ultimately ended up coming up with an answer, not coming up, but sharing an answer that was true because I had been thinking about it. But she asked me like how I'm doing and told her like I'm good, but my life right now is basically like I should have looked up the name because I knew I was going to talk about this on this episode. But basically there's this like myth story of a guy who's basically cursed to push a rock up a hill for all of eternity. He can get to the top of the hill, but once he gets to the top of the hill, the rock rolls down the other side of the hill, and then he has to go to the bottom and start all over. So he gets to the top, rolls down, starts all over, and he's just doing that over and over and over again. And I told her, like, that's kind of how my life is right now. It's good because I can get to the top of the mountain, and I can get to the end of my goals or end of the calendar month or whatever, but there's not a lot of time to kind of just chill and enjoy the view from the top of the mountain because the rock rolls down the other side and I have to start all over again because the calendar page flips and it's a new month, which means new bills and new events and new holidays and new birthdays to go to and new things that school that we have to figure out and new work goals to hit. So it was just, it's just a lot. And so I appreciate Tawny asking me that question, though, because I've really been thinking about it since that episode last week, because I knew I was heading into the end of the week being the daddy-daughter dance, right? So Tawny and I shot that episode like a week before the daddy-daughter dance. So we recorded that on a Friday, I think, and the next week was the daddy-daughter dance. So leading up to that dance, thinking about the response I gave to Tawny's question, I was just like, you know what? I think what I really want to do is use that time that I'm going to have with my daughters at the daddy-daughter dance as a time to really make sure I do chill at the top of that mountain and enjoy the view, if that makes sense. Because eventually, the rock's going to roll back down and I got to figure a whole bunch of other stuff. But for at least just that one night, I don't want to think about bills. I don't want to think about stuff I got to go do. I don't want to think about traveling for this. I don't want to think about meetings with my boss at work. I don't want to think about all this stuff. Because the week before, the daddy-daughter dance was just filled with a lot of crap. Like in that whole week, one of my girls lost a cell phone, so we spent like a whole weekend basically looking for a cell phone that she lost. The heater went out in my place. Thankfully, it's still like pretty warm where I live. Like there's not really much need for heat in the home except like really early in the morning, but then it heats up pretty quick. But I was just like, we got to figure this out because where I live, the weather, things can change quick and it can get nasty. So we got to figure this out now. And then my fridge has been broken for a little bit. And there was some financial stuff I really needed to figure out that was stressing me out. And that was like back to back to back to back within that whole week, all while still having my girls and figuring out all this other stuff. And so like, it was just like a lot. Like that was like me literally using all of my might to push the rock up to the top of the hill. And I didn't even know if I was going to be able to make it up that hill. Like it was steep. There you go. We'll just keep using the analogy. It was a steep portion of the hill. So I knew I had just worked through all of that. I figured all out all that stuff. We didn't find the phone, but I did get my heater fixed. I have a new fridge coming in a couple of days. I was able to figure out my financial stuff. So I was like, figuring it out. We're doing it. It was steep, but we're making it to the top of the hill. And at the top of the hill is the daddy-daughter dance. So I, at least for that one night, want to just sit and just be appreciative of this time. So mentally, that whole day leading up to the dance, I just prepared myself. I was like, Anthony, like, don't be on your phone because we don't need distractions. Don't think about this. Don't think about that. Just kind of chill and just kind of enjoy this moment with your daughters, because guess what? The rock's, whether you like it or not, the rock's going to roll down the hill and you're going to have to figure out a way to push it back up. But what you're not going to be able to do is get this time with your kids back. You're not going to get these moments back because they are growing up and they are becoming young women, and eventually they are going to becoming women. And they're so sweet. Even though now they say, Dad, we're going to be going with you to this event for our whole lives. And I'll be like, well, what about when you're 16? And they're like, no, we're still going to go. And I'm like, well, what about when you're 26? They're like, no, we're still going to go with you. And it's sweet that they say that now, but I know there's going to be a day when the father-daughter dance is going to come, and I'm going to look and they're just maybe not even want to go, but there's going to be a day where they just can't go because maybe they're off at school, or they moved, or they can't get time off work, or they have their own kids. And so I just, it's making me sad to think about, but it's true. Right? It's just reality. So I wanted to really make sure that I enjoyed the view at the top of the hill with them as my 7 and my 9-year-old, and really appreciate the moment. Right? And I did. I really, really did. And that's why at the movies, when I was sitting all comfortable with the movies, I knew that they started to call, and I was like, I just got comfortable, but let me go see what's up. And the whole conversation that I had with them was only like 5 minutes, but the conversation I had with them was just them telling me how thankful they are and how much they loved me. And, that is something I'm glad I slowed down at the top of the hill to really cherish and to really soak in, and just makes the rolling the rock up the hill part worth it, right? Because I know it seems like the whole point of that story, that metaphor, is just to seem like, well, you're just doing something that's pointless and meaningless, because as much as you try, you're going to have to start over. And so like, it's just like this version of hell, right? But for me, even though it feels like I'm rolling that rock up the hill, it's not meaningless and pointless, because I'm doing it to truly provide and make a couple of young girls feel loved and cared for and safe and secure, and set them up for success. And there's days where I forget that. There's days I don't always remember that and see that vision. But there are times like that dance on Friday where I get to sit and I'd be like, see, this is why we put in the work. This is why we deal with all the stress. This is why we don't give up. It's for moments like these. So yeah, those were my dates. That's how I spent my weekend. I'm glad I put myself out and said why not, and went to the speed dating thing. Sure, it kind of was a dud, but whatever. But I'm very, very thankful I was able to do the real date, the important date for right now at least. And that's the date I got to do with my daughters, and I wouldn't have traded that night with them for the whole entire world. All right, now it's time for the part of the podcast that we like to call Deeply Single. This is the portion of the show for everybody who stuck around to the deep end of the episode, just to give you a little something to think about, sometimes something to be encouraged by. But ultimately, today I just have like a question for Deeply Single. All right, so Tiny and I were talking last week about the fact that sometimes we get commenters who say all these wacky and unhinged and out-of-pocket things about single parents, and all these assumptions that people make, and all these judgments that people will make sometime, and blah, 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 blah. But I was just thinking, I was like, okay, all right, maybe for devil's advocate, or maybe just to put myself in the other shoe. Is that a saying? I don't know. But I was like, well, all right, let's just see if there's anything about single parents though that maybe I find a little strange, or that I think that I might be a little confused about, right? The whole, like, the call is coming from inside the house thing. Like, is there anything about single parent life that even I just don't get, and that I kind of like make a funny face towards? And I realized, like, yeah, there is something maybe I just don't get. And that is when single parents, or even just divorced people in general, refer to their ex-in-laws still as their in-laws, right? So like, I know people who've been divorced for like a hot minute, and they'll still refer to their, let's just say, ex-husbands. They'll still refer to their ex-husband's mom as my mother-in-law, or their siblings as, oh, that's my sister-in-law, blah, 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 blah. And I always just be like, well, no, like, am I wrong? Like, when you get a divorce, that person's no longer your husband, no longer your wife. So wouldn't that mean that person's family is no longer your in-laws? Like, that's not your mother-in-law anymore. That's your ex-husband's mom. Am I wrong about that? Like, that's how I like refer to it. I don't refer to my old in-laws as my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my blah, 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 blah. I just say, like, oh, that's like my kids' grandma, or my kids' grandpa, or their mom's mom, or something like that. And I know, like, sometimes it'll slip, right? Because maybe you've been married to somebody for a while, and you kind of get in the habit of referring to this person as your mother-in-law, your father-in-law. And so, like, I'm not talking about that where it's just like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it. But like, I'm just talking about in general, like, again, people I know who haven't been married to this person in a while, and they'll still refer to their family as their in-laws. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I missing something when it comes to that whole in-law thing? Like, does it change? Actually, let me just look up the definition real quick. All right. So the definition of in-laws just says a relative by marriage. Yeah, a relative by marriage. So in that case, they wouldn't be your in-laws anymore if you're not married to that person anymore, correct? This is just a question. Like, I'm not necessarily like saying this to judge anybody or to whatever. I was just thinking about this because that's something about, I know single parents who do this, and it's just always confused me as to like why you refer to that person as your mother-in-law still, even though they're technically not. What do you all think? This is just something I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you just to share your thoughts on. I'll make this the poll this week on Spotify. If you're listening to this the week that this comes out, you can share your comments and vote in the poll there. We'll make that the thing to do over there. But also you can use the socials, send DMs, the email at singleparentspodcast@gmail.com. That's the singleparentspodcast@gmail.com. Share your thoughts on this. This is something that you do. Do you still refer to your ex-husband, ex-wife's family as your in-laws? And do you do it on purpose? Is there a certain reason why you still refer to them that way? Is it just a slip of the tongue? Is it just old habits? That's why you still refer to them that way? Like, I know one person who still has their ex-mother-in-law saved in her phone as mother-in-law. And like, I guess I never really said anything, but like, I just want to know, like, oh, is there a reason why you haven't changed her name to Becky or Martha or whatever it is? Like, I know, like, for the last name thing, right? Like, I know people who are divorced but still have their ex-husband's last name or whatever, but I know that's kind of tricky because legally, maybe that's legally your last name, and on all your documents and your bills and blah blah blah, it's your last name. So like, even though I'm not with this person anymore, I still have that last name because I haven't gone through all the craziness to change it legally, or I get that, but I'm just talking about the in-laws. If you still refer to them as your in-laws, why? Again, this isn't a judgmental thing. I'm just curious as to why. Or if you just have a good answer to my question and you just want to share. Or if you're on the same side as me and you're just like, yeah, I've always thought that too. I never really got that, never really understood that. Whatever your perspective, share these thoughts. Maybe we'll take some of these thoughts and responses and opinions and answers and talk about them on a future episode of the podcast. But that's your homework. That's your question for this week, is to help me understand the in-law conundrum. But yeah, everybody, with that though, that's going to get ready to bring this episode of the Single Parents Podcast to an end. A little bit of housekeeping. Next week, there is not going to be a brand new episode if you're watching and listening to these shows the week that they come out. Next week, there is not going to be a new episode of the podcast. That would be October 16th. No new episode because my kids' mom, she's going on vacation. So I'm going to have my kids couple of weeks in a row, basically week and a half of just having my kids 24/7. And I know for some of you, you're like, oh, Anthony, you have to have your kids for 2 weeks. Like, I have my kids all the time. So blah, 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 blah. Well, like, yeah, for me, like, it's different. And so to have them basically 2 weeks in a row, week and a half in a row is going to be an adjustment because I do the whole week on, week off co-parenting thing. So for one of those weeks, I'm just going to fully focus on them. So we're not going to have an episode, but the week after that, I think it's the 23rd of October. Yeah, October 23rd, we're going to have another brand new episode come out. I think the episode I'm going to do for that, it's going to be kind of fun. I'm actually kind of excited about that episode. Somebody gave me the idea for that episode, and I think it's gonna be funny. It's gonna be a good time. So make sure, that's why I said, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, done all those things, so you know, okay, the 16th, no new episode, but the 23rd, I got the notification. I'm good. We're back in it. We got the second half of the season coming up, the last 6 episodes of 2024 coming up. You're not gonna want to miss it. Stick around. It's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a party. But until next time, until we see you back on the 23rd, you all out there, just stay beautiful. Bye.